Good evening and welcome to this event as part of the Courtauld and Somerset House's collaborative digital programme, which is supported by Morgan Stanley. My name is Karishma Rafferty and I'm one of the curators here at Somerset House. Tonight we're very happy to launch Unquiet Moments, Capturing the Everyday, which has been created by a wonderful team of curators as their final project on the MA Curating the Art Museum at the Courtauld Institute. This exhibition responds to part of the history of Somerset House as the first home of the General Registrar of Births, Marriages and Deaths, which was based at Somerset House for over 130 years. Over the next hour, you'll hear from the team of exhibition makers and curators behind the show as they talk you through some of the exhibition highlights and the process of curating such an exhibition during lockdown. Please do send your questions through to Somerset House on our social channels and wherever you're watching, and we'll be collecting these and asking as many as we can to the team in about 45 minutes. So thank you for joining us, and now over to the curators themselves.
Thank you so much, Karishma. We're really thrilled to be here all together and to have a chance to talk, all 9 of us, about the exhibition, which we are so thrilled to have finally opened today after a lot of hard work. Unquiet Moments, Capturing the Everyday is an online exhibition that celebrates the recording of everyday life through the making of art. And we have brought together artworks from both the Courtauld Gallery collection and the Arts Council collection to try to present the diversity of daily life as experienced across many different times and many different places. And our kind of intention for the exhibition has been to reveal what we feel is an enduring impulse to record, to reflect upon, and perhaps even reimagine the everyday. So we'd like to start this evening by showing you all a trailer video which will introduce you to the exhibition. Great. So we will each be speaking to you, all 9 of us, about one element of the exhibition process. And we're going to introduce ourselves as we go along. So to kick things off, my name is Annie, and my role in the exhibition has been to work directly with the Arts Council collection and to liaise with all of the incredible artists that we've been working with. We wanted to start off just by talking a little bit about where Unquiet Moments has grown from. So we are a group of 9 young curators, and we're all enrolled on the Courtauld Institute of Art's Master's Programme, Curating the Art Museum. It's a 12-month programme, and it covers lots of things from the histories and methodologies of museum and exhibition practices all the way through to this culminating exhibition every year. And this is really the first time for most of us to ever work on an exhibition from start to finish. And it's an incredible draw of the programme and just a really unique opportunity to learn practically with access to 2 incredible national collections with guidance from experts across the field. And as I'm sure my predecessors would attest to, it is always an incredibly steep learning curve. But of course, this year, with the pandemic, our particular year group has faced a whole new set of challenges in moving to an online platform and trying to coordinate quite a complex project, quite literally across the globe. The exhibition itself was actually originally realised as a physical exhibition due to be held at Somerset House, as Karishma said, in response to their summer programme. And my classmates will actually be talking a little bit more about that later on. But of course, in March, we really had to rethink all of that and rethink the exhibition model in its entirety. Whilst we have, along, I would say, with the rest of the cultural sector, mourned the loss of a physical exhibition, in the process, we have gained a huge amount. We've learned more than we could have imagined, and we found new ways to communicate about the artworks that we're showing. And I think we are collectively incredibly proud of what we have produced. When we look back to when we first met last year, we all talked together about why we had signed up to this particular master's programme and why we all wanted to be curators. And I think almost unanimously, we said that we wanted to open art up to a wider audience in the stories that it can tell and in the questions that it can ask. And so I think the one thing that we really hope has come from this online transition has been to include more audiences than could ever have been possible in the physical realm. So I hope you'll agree with us on that one. I'm now going to pass over to my classmate, Sophie Anne, who's going to tell you a little bit about who we are as a group of 9 curators.
Thank you very much, Annie, and hello everyone. My name is Sophie Anne. I am in charge of the budget for the exhibition, and I would like to shortly introduce you to the group and talk a little bit about what it meant to curate an exhibition as a group of 9 students from very different art historical backgrounds. So we are a group of 9 individuals coming from 6 different countries: England, Ireland, the US, Belgium, Spain, and France. And I think that the real strength of this group, and I hope that this is something that we were able to translate in our exhibition, is that we each come from very different backgrounds, have different previous experiences, trajectories, and we each have our own specific areas of interest. Some of us have backgrounds in more traditional areas, such as 16th and 18th century European art, whilst others specialize in more contemporary and modern and contemporary subjects, such as, for instance, American photography, digital art, or performance art. So as you can see, we have a diverse range of interests, and whilst this was quite challenging at first to kind of reconcile all of our interests or ideas or personal ways of looking at things and of understanding them, I believe that we all benefited greatly, both as a group and as individuals, from this diversity of perspectives, especially as our exhibition brings together works of art from both the Courtauld and the Arts Council collection. Spanning over 400 years of artistic creation, it was really crucial that we could each contribute in our specific areas and put our knowledge together. And this allowed us, I believe, to create meaningful dialogues and connections between works of art from very different periods and traditions, and create an enriching experience for our visitors. I also hope that by joining our skills and expertise, we were able to reach and appeal to a different, wider audiences kind of simultaneously. So just to finish, I think that we were really lucky to have such a positive, open, and communicative group in which everyone was truly willing to compromise in order to advance the project, particularly, as Annie has mentioned, at this moment of social distancing, where we have all gone back to our respective homes, or scattered across 4 different time zones, and our only means of communication is through digital interfaces. It was really essential that we all worked as a group towards a common objective and not as individuals kind of pursuing different roles. So yeah, I will now pass on to Anna, who will introduce you to our brief. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much, Sofiane, for this introduction. I have to say this picture of us at Somerset House has really made me very nostalgic of how the project actually first started, which it feels like it's been ages ago. But the first time we read the brief from Somerset House, we were asked to respond to the history of Somerset House as the site of the births, marriages, and deaths and wills archive. So we immediately started thinking about, this idea of the physical archive, like a receptacle of memories and families and history, which is so rich and, so live with stories. But we started thinking about how, in some ways, institutional archives can feel very bureaucratic or a little bit detached. There's very much just very straightforward information. So we started thinking about how people have always recorded their lives, their everyday lives, the momentous, parts of their lives as well, like things like marriages and big celebrations, but how we can talk about those stories in a more human way, in a more intimate way, perhaps. And so we started, exploring artworks and artists who have been doing this, because it's a very human thing to do. People have been doing it for eons. So we got to work and started brainstorming ideas. And eventually, when we went into the embankment galleries, which was originally, well, we went to Somerset House to visit the space. And then when we went to the embankment galleries, in the space where we were going to develop originally our exhibition, at that time it was the 24/7 exhibition. We started imagining, the space, how we were going to hang our artworks in there. It was incredibly exciting because we really wanted to draw that relationship between the artworks and the space, and then the people, because these places are always going to be inhabited by people. Which I think is why, the coronavirus situation and the quarantine, really flipped this project around on its head, because suddenly we didn't have a space anymore. We didn't have the physical space, we didn't have the physical artworks, and we were not in that physical space either. But it hasn't all been losses. We have learned so much with this online exhibition project. I'm going to let Elizabeth tell you a little bit more about it.
Thank you, Anna. My name's Elizabeth, and my role was leading on interpretation, so serving as kind of a general editor for the captions and the other texts for our exhibition. So once we knew that our exhibition would no longer be anchored in the physical space of Somerset House, we began to think more deeply about how it could relate not only to Somerset House's history, but also to our specific moment in time. We hope to be able to offer people a space to reflect and connect with each other and with works of art at a very challenging time. We were thinking about how could we retain the texture of human experience in this online platform. So we wanted a design that would feel intuitive and open. We wanted audio that would allow our voices to come through, and we wanted to plan events that would allow our artists to speak directly to our audiences. We realized that we would be speaking from our homes, often directly into the homes of our visitors, and we wanted to maintain and support that sense of closeness and contact. And our theme, capturing everyday moments, the fine print of life, as opposed to the banner headlines, actually seemed perhaps more resonant and relevant in the new context. Some of the works in our exhibition did speak to real sense of losses that people were experiencing, but many also spoke very powerfully about resilience and joy and community. So I'll now introduce some of the kind of broad through lines of our exhibition as we kick off our virtual tour. So within our overall theme of Unquiet Moments, we've chosen to focus on works of art that are diaries of personal experience, works of art that articulate the collective identities of families and communities, and works of art that preserve memories that might otherwise be lost. These three broad categories have allowed us to create unexpected conversations and counterpoints between works of different media, styles, and eras. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Sia, who is our fantastic web development lead, who will take us through the digital platform in greater depth.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm Sia. I am the website development lead for the project. And to give a little bit of context, moving online was a special challenge, as the idea of a digital exhibition is a foreign concept for many of us, and it can take an often endless range of forms. In a sense, we weren't only installing the works, we were actually literally building the house for the works to live in. To that extent, we decided that one of our priorities was allowing the visitor to retain as much autonomy as possible when choosing their path through the website. Starting with visual diaries, you can see that each room feeds into each other, allowing easy access to move through our exhibition in whatever order you like. Additionally, we've deliberately positioned the artworks on the page so that you can draw comparisons with the group of works on the screen as they scroll by. When you enter an artwork, you're presented with more information about the work, including an extremely zoomable image, so you can see all of the lovely detail. You can really see the pencil marks on the works. We have a textile work that you can see the actual weaving of it. That was one of our priorities as a feature. And then you can also see on the right-hand side of the artwork detail page, our original audio pieces that we either recorded ourselves or commissioned. Additionally, accessibility was a huge concern of ours from the beginning, as one of our main desires was to reach as many people as possible. To that end, we've added in an audio transcription and an image description, which are easily accessible on each page. Finally, throughout the exhibition, you can see small moments of texture scattered, whether in our small scribbles around the text, visible in many of our headlines and around our captions that we have, or in our custom icons and our cursor. It was important for us to retain that human experience, as oftentimes people can think that the digital world can be a cold and unfeeling place. But to us, this online exhibition was a great way to present the incredible ways that digital features can actually connect to and enhance the wider human experience. To talk a little bit further about the artworks, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Julie.
Thanks, Sia. Hi, everyone. My name is Julie, and I am one of the press, marketing, and social media coordinator for this exhibition. Today, I'm going to walk you through the first section of Unquiet Moments, called Visual Diaries. As Elizabeth explained, this section explores how artists have been keeping trace of events of their everyday life. These are moments that we have all experienced, whether it is taking up a hobby or something as simple as reading a book. But when we think about these moments, they can appear insignificant, but this might be because the changes occurred by these everyday moments are so subtle that we might not realize how much they have influenced who we have become. All the works in this first room are observations of daily life, ranging from 17th century to 2016, which really goes to show that artists, just like us, have been recording fragments of their existence for a very long time. I am now going to tell you a bit more about my personal favorite works from this section and perhaps from the entire exhibition, which are 3 beautiful chalk drawings by the artist Rembrandt, dating from the 1630s and 1640s. As you may know, Rembrandt was a very versatile artist, especially when it came to his subject matters. He's known for his grand historical compositions like The Night's Watch, but he also took interest in much more humble subjects. Here we have 3 studies of his wife, Saskia, in various positions, and in one of them, she's holding their newborn son. Rembrandt was a prolific printmaker throughout his entire career, so there is this possibility that these studies were in fact future print designs. So if you'd like to know a bit more about Rembrandt's printmaking career, I can only encourage you to listen to the piece of audio that accompanies these works. I personally adore these drawings, not only because they are intimate snapshots of the artist's life, but because they really show how much of a gifted draftsman Rembrandt was. We were really eager to provide the viewers with high-resolution images of every work for this particular reason. Here you will be able to zoom in and see how Rembrandt alternates between precise strokes and almost abstract lines. And that's Rembrandt for you right there. He had this ability to elevate any humble subjects into an observation and even a celebration of the line. I think there is something quite moving about them, especially considering that both Saskia and their son died shortly after. They are very privileged glimpse into the artist's own life. And that's because Rembrandt never saw an idealized rendering of everyday life, but rather presented an unmediated reality, which is why they fit so well into this section of the exhibition. I like to think that that's what their lives look like. Rembrandt might have sketched them very quickly on a grey day like today. And we were very eager. We really wanted our public to be able to reflect upon their own life experiences too, just like the artist in Visual Diaries did. A work that has been with us from the beginning for this exact reason is Kid Stuff by Michael Craig Martin, dating from 1973. This is an installation work which is made of 7 frames, which are accompanied by 7 small mirrors and 7 handwritten lines by the artist. In a physical space, viewers would have been able to walk up to those frames and see themselves in the mirrors. But of course, this wasn't possible on a digital platform, but we were really eager to preserve some kind of physicality of the works. So a couple of weeks ago, I was extremely lucky to be able to go to the Art Council collection store to assist the hang and talk about 2 works in the exhibition, including this one. We would have not been able to do this without the support of the Arts Council collection or the talent of our film maker at Prosa. So we're really grateful for their support on this. And because a picture, or this case a video, tells 1,000 words, we're going to play this video from this file. Please enjoy. Julie Blias, and we are here at the Arts Council collection store to look at Kid Stuff by Michael Craig Martin. Michael Craig Martin has been exploring objects and images his entire life and how the humans have been responding to it. But this work especially dates from 1973, so that is just a few years before he actually really developed his landmark style of very bold outlines with vibrant colours. And this work sort of captures the curious revelations that come with aging. Each of these frames comes with one individual mirror and one handwritten phrase that is a blend of nostalgia and self-reflection. I feel I know myself. Did I feel I knew myself? I remember wondering how it would be to be twice my age. How strange it would be to be twice my age. The viewers are really encouraged to look at themselves and really reflect upon their own life experiences. The work really implies the necessity of another person to be interacting with this work. And because our reflection is fragmented as we pass from one mirror to another, the artist really demands our presence and absence for the work to be complete. I am quite drawn to this work because I don't usually look at myself in a mirror for a significant amount of time. And when I do, it's quite brief. It's just when I brush my teeth in the morning or fix my hair, but it's never anything beyond a simple observation on my physical appearance. So I'm really drawn to this sort of invitation from the artist to stop and reflect upon my own life experience. Wonderful. Thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed that. And now I'm going to pass over to my friend and my colleague, Sophie, who is going to talk a bit more about her personal favourite work.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, I'm Sophie, and I've been looking after the press marketing side of things along with Julie as well. So I'm going to be talking you through the next section called Family Albums and Community Portraits. So we'll just get that up. Okay, so this section looks at how artists have captured moments and memories in family and community life. So there's works included like Mohini Chandra's work, Album Pacifica, which looks at the complexities of families. When there's also Van Liebeck's photographic series, Handsworth Inside, which focuses on the documentation of African Caribbean communities in Handsworth, Birmingham. But my personal favourite work in this section is the Barbara Walker paintings called Boundary 1 and Boundary 2. And these works also capture life in Handsworth, like the Van Liebecks, but through the medium of oil paint. So Walker spent time in barbershops across Handsworth recording and taking photographs of what she saw, and then she translated these scenes into large-scale oil paintings like the two we see here. Barbara Walker's work articulates the daily experience of the African Caribbean community in Handsworth, but in her work she also seeks to change and challenge the negative stereotypes of Black men, so often found in mainstream media. So if you want to find out more about this work, I've recorded an audio piece which you can listen to on the website, and there's also the captions as well, which you can read. But we're also going to go back to the Mohini Chandra work because, like the Michael Craig Martin, Julie also was lucky enough to go to the Arts Council stores and see this work being hung and recorded her experience of that. So we're going to watch that video now.
This work is Album Pacifica by the artist Mohini Chandra, and it is a series of 100 photographs. It is actually a series of photographs that have been slipped, and some of them have descriptions, some of them have numbers or dates. So whilst we only see the back of the image, we'll still get a sense of history of the people in those photographs. The hang of this work varies from exhibition to exhibition, but the hanging process is always a collaboration with the artist. Here we have chosen a very scattered and organic hang, and actually this type of hang really recalls the way photographs are displayed in the homes of the Fiji Indian diaspora. Mohini Chandra has been interested in photography and sort of exploring relationships for her career, and this work actually comes from her own research of her own family. In the late 90s, she started to look for some of her extended family that has been spread across Canada and New Zealand, and then she received a very timely artist commission and was able to travel to India and Fiji to meet her relatives. So something that we've been really eager to translate into this hang is how complex human relationships can be, and that's something that is very important to the artist as well, as she has referred to this installation process as a kind of abstract map. Sort of calls to, the relationships that can be found within families. Some members might be apart, some members might be close. So that's something that we've been trying to translate into the actual hang. And so they're going to get a real sense of crescendo from the beginning of the hang to a very dense mass of works.
I think it's really fair to say that we're all very jealous of Julie. She's very lucky. But now I'm going to hand over to Matilda to talk about our final section.
Hi, I'm Matilda, another of the curators, and my role was to create the audio content for the exhibition. So if we go into our last section of the exhibition, which we call Traces of Loss, here we include artists who have preserved moments and memories in their art that might otherwise be lost. The artworks address absences left by people and place or ways of life. And in some, the act of creation is almost a way of remembering or constructing memories anew. So as with the other sections, we thought carefully about how to curate the works so that particular themes and ideas could be brought out. So at the start, we start with works by Veronica Ryan and Carl O'Heary, who use the family photograph and revisit it and draw on it to speak to a pain of personal loss and remembrance. And then if we move down the page, we come to works by Alico, Nigel Shafran, and Fiona Crisp. And these look at how places and objects can really hold this presence of an absent person or moment. They sort of act as elegies to the left behind or the forgotten. And then moving down, we come to works by Kabir Hussain, Zarina Bimji, and Mikhail Kariki. And these look at how landscapes evoke memories of things past and lost, and the vastness of landscape, and how they can be imbued with history and personal memory. So in this section, we have 2 3D works actually, and it was quite a struggle to know how to communicate their physicality to a visitor coming to them on a screen. And we really tried hard to think about how to communicate the surface and textures of them. So for the Hussein, these installation shots from different angles, so you could really see the undulations of the surface. And then for the Alico, having that zoomable quality, so you could see the texture of this woven piece. And as for the audio, if we go into maybe the Nigel Shafran. So audio was something we were really excited about. Having this virtual platform, we knew we could take advantage of video and audio as a way of creating immersive experiences for the visitor and have them really connect with the works. So here is Nigel Shafran's really beautiful series of photographs. And on the right, as we've said, under the caption, you have this piece of audio. And we really wanted to have this empathetic and human aspect to the exhibition. And we were really passionate about having all of our voices. So all 9 of us speak in the audio throughout the exhibition. And it was an opportunity to have this kind of guided tour of the artworks. So you are guided through these artworks visually. So here we have Sophie and Sophie-Anne introducing the Nigel Shafran work, but we also commissioned work by a sound artist who responded to 3 of the works, 1 in each section. And they're really evocative and beautiful atmospheric pieces. And we also have pieces of audio that are outside perspectives, people outside the exhibition responding to themes that are brought out in the works. So we have a new mother responding to a work by Susan Hiller on her experience of pregnancy. And I could talk about these works myself, but I think it's probably best if you hear from those who know them best. So Sophie and Sophie-Anne, if we listen to that audio while looking at the works.
Unquiet Moments. Capturing the everyday.
I'm Sophie and I'm one of the curators at the Unquiet Moments Capturing the Everyday.
Hi, I'm Sofiane and I'm also one of the curators.
These 6 photographs are a collection of photos that show interior scenes. They're of his father, Nigel Shafran's father's office. It's a very domesticated space. that we see, and the objects are really familiar, I think, to us. In the photographs we can see objects like an ashtray, a drinks trolley, chair, electric heater, curtains, the kitchen sink.
The light is very soft. It fills in the space with quite evocative shadows. It's like this very beautiful natural light.
The photographs are reminiscent of still life paintings, I think, in a way. And I think, yeah, that's kind of the point of Shafran's work, is that he speaks and gives volume to these very much everyday objects and ordinary objects.
The photographer is called Nigel Shafran. He is a British photographer who started his career by doing photographs for fashion magazines.
In the 1990s, he began creating series of photographs and putting them together in these homemade books, and they gave the texture of everyday life.
In his own words, how we place things can be telling of how and what we are. But I think that's what's really interesting with Shafran's photography as well, is that he captures objects that are kind of almost like fragments of ourselves, or like fragments of our identity, and these objects that we interact with on a daily basis and that kind of become who we are in a way.
And there are many more to explore across the exhibition site, but I'll hand over to my colleague Zaina now.
Hi everyone, I'm Zaina and I have been the project manager and events coordinator for the exhibition. And I suppose I'd just like to start off by saying thank you so much to all the artists for their genuine support and incredible enthusiasm for this project, and their insight, which has been a huge benefit in navigating this familiar territory of the online exhibition and in helping us come up with extremely creative ways to show the artworks. And I really hope they're all happy with it. Also, just a huge thank you to all of those without whom this exhibition really wouldn't have been possible, which includes, of course, the Courtauld Gallery and Institute staff, Sutton PR, the Somerset House team, the Arts Council team, and our programme leader, Martin Cager-Smith, whose support and guidance throughout this process has just been incredible. And just also, as project manager, I'd like to say a huge thank you to this group. I think it's been such a pleasure to work with 8 such amazing people, and I think our strong bonds have just made this project what it is today. And I'd just like to say a huge thank you. And with that, yeah, I think I'll turn it back to you, Karishma, for the Q&A.
Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed that. So I'd love to kind of get on and ask you some more questions. Let's just see. I think the best way to do it is just whoever feels that they're kind of like best placed to answer, just kind of like chip in and let's have a little bit of a conversation. So firstly, can you talk us through some of the, although you've kind of obviously been working very kind of well as a group and you've really kind of like stepped up to the challenge of COVID and lockdown, what were the kind of specific difficulties and challenges in terms of like changing from curating in a physical space and then all of a sudden trying to kind of put together like a digital exhibition? What were the challenges and also the opportunities around that?
So I can hop in on this. So I think that in our original conception of the exhibition, we were very much tied to the physicality of the space and to really understanding our works within a physical dimension. But the opportunities that we've been afforded from moving that project to a digital exhibition has actually allowed us to bring in a lot more elements than we didn't expect to be able to have, from ranging from videos to audio work to all sorts of things. And I think it speaks to our adaptability as a team and the amazing skills that everyone has been able to bring in and collaborate together in order to not just replace the physicality of a physical exhibition, but also make it something that in and of itself as a standalone project is something that we are all very proud of and really captures like the possibilities of the digital space.
Wonderful. And I mean, so when we have exhibitions at Somerset House, it's very rare that, you know, it's just kind of like single artworks in a room without, you know, bringing people together physically to kind of like talk and debate around the works. And usually we have a public program around it. And, you know, what are the kind of like added on things that you might get in the physical space? And how have you kind of like responded to that by kind of transferring to be online?
So I can hop in on this one. I think we've been incredibly lucky with our public programme, with artists being so generous with their time, and we have some really, really exciting events coming up. The first of which is next week, and it's an artist talk with photographer Sunil Gupta, who will be in conversation. Yeah, so Sunil will be in conversation with Fiona Anderson from Newcastle University, and they'll be talking about two of Sunil's series, the first of which is Exiles, which we've included in our exhibition and is my personal favorite work. And then Sunil will also be pairing this with a later series called Mr. Malhotra's Party, and just kind of comparing the social circumstances and kind of impulse behind both series. And then shortly after that, we'll have an artist in conversation event with Carl Lahiri and Mohini Chandra. And then towards the close of our exhibition, we'll have two film screenings, one with Andrea Luca Zimmerman and Michael Kariki, who will both be screening their films, which are both available to view within the exhibition. But this will be a special one-off screening back to back. And then Andrea and Michael will be in conversation afterwards. And then we conclude with a special screening of Charlotte Rogers' Bridget. But please keep an eye on our social media, the main account of which is Instagram, and it's at MA Curating, because we have some really exciting IGTV chats coming up with two contemporary artists and gallery curators talking about works that mean something to them. So that will all be really exciting. And I think, you know, having everything online gives us an opportunity to connect and for a far greater audience to actually engage with these events than probably would have been possible in the physical space.
Well, I was wondering about that actually. You know, I mean, I don't know where all your kind of speakers are coming from, but what I have noticed over the last couple of months is sometimes these kind of talks and events, they actually allow you to bring together people that maybe wouldn't have been possible in the kind of physical space. I don't know if it's been the case for this exhibition or not.
Absolutely. We had a chat with Michael last week, Michael Kariki, and we're really pleased to be able to bring himself and Andrea together for this event, as they're friends with one another, and informed us that they'd wanted to do something together for a good while. And it's rare that they'd actually be in the same city physically. So Fantastic. It's a hugely amazing opportunity for us, and we're so grateful that they're both so excited about it.
Super. And we're getting a couple of questions through from our audiences. One comment, beautiful and imaginative exhibition. Was there any other digital projects that inspired you when you were creating this?
I can maybe start by speaking to this one, because it has been a fast and furious process, I think, for all of us, figuring out what exactly a virtual exhibition was actually even going to be. When we had that moment of transition from visualizing this as being physical to visualizing it being virtual, we had to get our heads around whether we were going to be creating a virtual exhibition space that we hung the works on that people could move around, or whether it was something different altogether. So we spent a lot of time looking at very many different exhibition platforms, which was very helpful to a degree, but we actually were feeling our way with this to an extent, because as soon as the pandemic hit, a lot of the digital exhibitions that were emerging from something that was already physically hung. And of course, we actually haven't seen any of these works in the flesh. So we were kind of working from from a very different starting point to everyone else. But we've really just been looking at all sorts of different augmented reality possibilities and virtual reality possibilities, and we've thrown the net quite wide to get to where we are now. But I think all of the different elements of this exhibition, from the tiny bits of audio to the various kind of assets on the site, have been drawn from lots of different areas of inspiration. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in on that one.
Yeah, actually, I think something that we have really gotten the opportunity to do with this online exhibition, well, we've talked about, expanding our audiences and reaching people in different places in the world. But I think it's not just that. I think we've also been able to talk a lot about, the question of accessibility and inclusion, which I realized I forgot to say that I was in charge of access and I assisted to the web development of this project. But so we really got thinking about, how can we use the digital platform to really push the question of access. So we talked about, we have audio pieces which accompany our artworks, but then we also have audio transcriptions, so you can follow what the audio is saying and read it at the same time. Or for people who are hard of hearing, they can still access the amazing audio interpretation that we have through this other medium that is text. And then we also have image descriptions, so that people who are visually impaired can still, enjoy these artworks and really explore the exhibition for all of us. Because at the beginning of this talk, we talked about how we wanted to explore the archive of this very human thing. And I think it was very clear for us that if this idea of humanity is not expanded to include as many people as possible, then it's obviously coming short. So that's been a very exciting thing to do. There's still a lot to learn in terms of access. Like, sadly, these are not necessarily very common things in all institutions in the art world, but I think it was great to put it in practice, particularly at a university level, because hopefully these are lessons that we've learned and we're going to take with us in our careers. So that's been very exciting.
Yeah, I suppose I was interested in asking that, what you spoke at the beginning that all of you were kind of very passionate about expanding audiences, more diverse audiences, making art more kind of accessible generally. And you kind of talked about that through your process as well. But I kind of wonder, as we kind of come out of lockdown, post-COVID, you're all going off to be, curators in different places. Like, what are those? How can you kind of bring some of those kind of learnings forward with you? And yeah, can you kind of expand on that a little bit more?
Sure, I can speak to that. I mean, as you say, we're all kind of coming from different focuses, headed off to different careers. I think, there have been a couple really important lessons that we've been learning. I think we've thought a lot about how to kind of create a sense of voice and conversation in the space. And I think that's something that we've really tried to do with our audio. That's something that could absolutely be done in a physical space where that kind of social experience of art is even more possible than it might be online. I don't want to hog this question. Does anyone else want to think about or speak about a particular lesson they want to take forward?
We've also got some other questions. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to build off of that just a tiny bit and say, I think the skills that we've learned throughout this project as well are ones that are incredibly useful in a range of different situations. So the idea of building a website, you wouldn't think that it would be applicable in a lot of different areas, but it is understanding structures, how things fit together, understanding how to speak people's language when they're talking about this thing is an incredibly useful thing that, having learned it here, we can very much bring that into our future and build, if our goal is the most accessible things, websites are incredibly accessible, and making sure that the things that we build are things that other people not only want to see, but are also engaged with as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Great, and we're getting a couple of more questions through. One is, congratulations on a very thoughtful show. Could you say any more about the concept that you got from Somerset House in terms of the record office, and how did that, I suppose, inform the works that you decided to show in the exhibition?
I can speak to this one. I think, so when we heard about the concept of the archive and kind of specifically the Somerset House archive as recording births, marriages and deaths, you know, obviously these are very apparent and recognised milestones in our lives, but when we kind of reflected further on these rites of passage, we kind of all came to the conclusion that actually many of the most significant events in our lives happen in between these moments, so kind of in the flux of daily life, but often these aren't recognized or celebrated as much. So I think we kind of took from that as our starting point, and then kind of looked at what are the elements of daily life that we could kind of we could see being reflected in artworks, and then from that kind of came up with this broad group. And then I suppose that's the curatorial process, is kind of forming links between them, and kind of the first section then being quite about personal reflection, moving outwards towards families and communities, and then finally the traces of loss is kind of retrospective and then very much linked to like memory and place. And so I think that's kind of how we transitioned from the brief to what we ended up with now.
That was your journey.
Yeah.
And just kind of skipping through, because we've got a few others. Incredibly poignant exhibition, and particularly thinking about absence and loss during this particular time. For your kind of life curating post-COVID, what have you learnt that improves your current practice? So I suppose kind of picking up on those ideas of kind of loss.
I think when we realized we couldn't have this physical exhibition, we did, obviously the world was going through a significant period of loss. And I think to a lesser extent, we felt that loss in terms of the physical objects and our physical exhibition. But as we've said, we've gained so much from it as well, and seeing it as the skills that we've gained, and really the opportunities that have been given to us from doing this virtually, in a way that more people can see it and more people can benefit from having connections with these artworks. I think that's something that we've all been really struck by, and will definitely have learned from, I think.
Great. Someone had asked as well, would you have changed the theme of the exhibition if you had known that you would be developing an online exhibition rather than physical one from the start?
We actually were struck by how fitting it was when the pandemic occurred, just because everyone was in their homes, and there was so much in the media about this really focused existence that we were having. On the news, you saw people giving interviews from their homes. You saw people really taking what joy they could from being inside and being among families or found families, and trying to connect as best they could over Zoom calls and Skype calls and all of this. So I don't think we would have changed it at all. In fact, it fit really well.
And I suppose kind of like building on that, you know, you didn't know that you'd end up with a digital exhibition, but you know, usually you have an opening and you have a closing and you have a period of deinstall and kind of, you know, like mourning the goodbye of like all your hard work. But what does it kind of mean to you to have an exhibition that's online that maybe doesn't have a definitive end? Or like, have you thought about what happens after the next month or so?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So we were hoping that our exhibition would be able to kind of live on past the end date of the show. So we're excited in 2 weeks to launch the catalog for the show, where we're thrilled that we've had the opportunity to actually collaborate with early career artists and writers and scholars. Yes, exactly. Thank you. And so that'll include kind of a record of all the works and kind of our voice as well, kind of speaking about it, and then responses. So we're excited that that'll be the way the exhibition can live on. Wow,
that's a great opportunity that you've managed to do that. And something that I was thinking about earlier when we were talking, is it that the work span 4 centuries? It's like an amazing kind of time span of artists working at different points, experiencing and, kind of like reacting to the ideas of the everyday. But with any of the contemporary artists, have you had very much of like a one-to-one dialogue? And if so, have they had any kind of reflections in terms of that kind of enormous time span that you've been working with?
Yeah, I think I can pick up by speaking to this. And just to preface that, another huge gain that we've got from this movement online has actually been how much we've been able to be in touch with all of our artists. They've been incredibly willing and kind of kind about having these amazing Zoom calls with us, and we've kind of had an unprecedented level of access in that level. And lots of the conversations that we've been having have been about how these very contemporary works from the Arts Council collection can come into dialogue with works from the Courtauld collection, because there isn't this challenge of the wall space, which obviously we have been very liberated from. And I think this is something we all identified as a group from the beginning, that by moving to an online platform, senses of scale or materiality or different, lighting needs or hanging needs or even atmosphere conditions can all kind of be abandoned. And so we can have, a beautiful, tiny little Kathy Prendergast sculpture next to a very delicate drawing from centuries previously. So this has definitely been something really liberating, and it's just worked so well that has then fitted into this theme of a sense of continuity of recording of the everyday and looking at that across this kind of very universal, as a very universal concept. So I hope all of our artists will be pleased with how those dialogues have been set up, but we've worked really hard to create them.
Fantastic. Another question that came in was that the graphic elements of the online platform are very interesting and very different to a minimalistic style that are often used on online viewing rooms. And was that something that you built and responds to theme and messages in the exhibition?
Yeah, I can speak to that one. So we worked really closely with our graphic designer and sent her a creative brief. And I think we all really wanted the kind of, you can see the graphic-y lines, the scribbles, wanted it to feel like you're kind of almost looking into somebody's personal diary or notebook or something. And yeah, it was, I think having it online, it means that we can move away from the kind of traditional notions of like a gallery space and like the white cube. And yeah, we were allowed to just kind of go a bit wild with like how we displayed the works, and kind of put the graphic lines and the scribbles around things. Julie, do you want to talk about it a bit more? Because Julie also worked on it with me.
Yeah, well, I don't have much to add, but yeah, it was just to retain this sense of, the human presence that we've been trying to translate into the exhibition for so long. Yeah, I think you've said most of it, Sophie.
Fantastic. And I think we're just coming up to time. So one last question. Sorry. So this is coming from an audience member. I really like the warm human tone of the interpretation and the graphics. could you say a little bit more about how you developed the everyday style and rhetoric of the show?
I think we were really worried about, as Sia said before, this sort of coldness of a website, and we definitely wanted that sense of empathetic human voice, and also this texture, as the others have been saying. And what was really key was this trailer video, which Sophie-Anne can speak to better than me.
Yeah, so this is a trailer video that we worked on with a filmmaker, an artist who is a friend of ours, and we really wanted to kind of infuse a lot of kind of personality and character in that, to give this sense of warmth that you were just mentioning, and with the pieces of newspaper and yeah, just adding a bit of texture to a website, to this digital platform, which otherwise could have felt a bit cold and impersonal. And we felt that we had the opportunity with this platform to do that and to put a bit of ourselves as well. So yeah, we were really pleased with the graphics and the trailer as well, which I think participates a lot to the exhibition.
Yeah, I just think it kind of comes together really well in terms of kind of all these different elements that have required, you know, their own like mini projects, which it's really interesting to have a proper conversation about, because quite often in exhibition making, I suppose you kind of lose some of the kind of the detail of the process of all of those different aspects of it. So we've kind of come up to 7 o'clock, so I'm just going to say a massive congratulations to all of you. I think the exhibition looks great, and I really kind of look forward to exploring in a little bit more depth myself. Shout out again to, you've got a couple more events coming up. When's the next one?
Sorry, so the next one is the 24th, and it's the artists' talk with Sunil Gupta and Fiona Anderson.
Fantastic. So thank you to all of you for creating this great project. Thank you to all our audiences for joining us. Please keep an eye on the website for everything else coming up. There'll be lots more soon. And have a good evening. Thanks a lot.